What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Off the Couch Boxing. I am your host, Reckless Rex Ruger. Watching my back, as always. You know him, you love him. The Alexis Arguello puppet in the house. We are back with another banger of an episode. You guys know what we do here and how we get down the most amazing and real boxing conversations anywhere on planet Earth. Legends, luminaries, world champions, and fighters on the come up, all coming here to chop it up with your boy Reckless Rex. And today is no different. We, of course, have another great episode, but in my opinion, they are all great. That's what makes us the undisputed, undefeated heavyweight champion of boxing podcast, bar none. And before my guest gets in here, let me share with you that I was at a great night of boxing last night, June 6th, 2025. Today is June 7th. Congratulations to all the winners last night during International Boxing Hall of Fame weekend who fought on the Friday night card last night amongst the festivities. And, of course, the amazing Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York. Some of my favorite young fighters were on that card last night. Big shout-out to Dimitri Salita and Salita Promotions for showing up and showing out in our area here in upstate New York and putting on a great fight card with some of the great young up-and-coming talent. Joseph Shug Hicks Jr., Joshua Double J Pagan, Stanley Shogun Wright, Brandon OJ Bam Moore in the main event doing his thing. Just a lot of great talent showcase. Price Taylor, Brooklyn in the house. Big victory for him last night in the heavyweight division. Just great to see all this young talent on an absolutely stacked card last night. Congratulations to everybody that won. Of course, my girl Franchon Cruz DeZern last night. She did her thing. Just a great night. And of course, the stars were out in full effect last night. Got to rub elbows and brush up against some real boxing greatness. Some of the inductees, the Tasmanian Devil, Vinny Paz in the house, Michael Nunn in the house, the great referee Kenny Bayless in the house, Jerry Cooney was there, Irish Mickey Ward, the Ghost Kelly Pavlik. Jeez, man, who else? It was Roy Jones Jr. in the house. Of course, the GWOAT in the house, Clarissa Shields. It was a big night for boxing, and just a great event. Shout out to everybody that had a hand in putting it on. The International Boxing Hall of Fame and Ed Brophy, the staff at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino. And again, another shout out to my guy Dimitri Salita and Salita Promotions, who came up to me last night, got a picture, chatted for a few minutes, and said he loves the area and he loves that particular venue and hopes to get back there and put on shows numerous times a year. So that would be great putting on for our little area here in upstate New York, man. Turning Stone Resort and Casino, really getting their hands in there, man. And when they do get boxing there, it's always a great event. We know, because Off the Couch Boxing, always sitting in the press row. We get our media credentials. We're there. We're in the house. And speaking of in the house, my guest is here right now. That was a perfect segue. Let's get down to it and chop it up. I'm excited. Let's go. There he is, Alfonso. What's up, man?
What's happening, man? You doing all right?
I'm glad we got a chance to do this, man. I appreciate you doing it, man. Thank you, man. And it's a pleasure to meet you, man.
Oh, absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me, giving me the opportunity and having me on.
Yeah, I would have squeezed you in yesterday, but as you probably know, I'm here in upstate New York in the backyard of the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Big shit popping off this weekend, man. So, doing a podcast, I get my press credentials. I'm in press row, man. I'm ringside of a big night of boxing last night, man. All the legends, all the inductees are in the house last night.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's definitely on my list to do one of these years. That's definitely gonna have to get up there, one of these years to one of those events.
Yeah, it's nice to see the actual facility is the Turning Stone Casino. And I got a chance to talk last night just briefly to Dimitri Salita. It was his promotional company that put the event on last night. And he really loves the area. He said that if he has his way, man, he just loves the venue, loves the area, and would like to come back there and put boxing events on 4 or 5 times a year, which is great news for us here in upstate New York.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic if they can pull that off,
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Now, usually when I start these things, I kind of like to start at the beginning, man. So for people that don't know, man, how early did you get a pair of boxing gloves on? What was the impetus for you getting into boxing?
Shoot, man. I kind of started as a kid, but I wasn't ever really it was never sanctioned, was improper, right? It was backyard boxing with my
Yeah.
uncles who were who were in boxing. My dad, my stepfather, they were all boxing at the time, and they just kind of I was the youngest of all my cousins, and a bunch of boys. We all lived on the same street, and man, we boxed it out, and it just kind of grew on me. But I played every other sport consistently. It was just seasonal, baseball, football, you name it, we did it. So I didn't really dial into boxing until I was in college.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel like, though, I guess there's two schools of thought there. Do you feel like getting into it like later, saves you from some of the wear and tear of these guys that get into it at 5, 6 years old and have these long amateur careers? Or do you think it is more beneficial like when you get into it young?
Yeah, I think it's better. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I think it's better to probably get into it young, I think you have to structure the training with young kids properly. You don't want to see them getting hit too soon, and you don't want to overly beat their bodies up at such a young age before they're developed. So I feel like maybe a little older, it does give you a chance to kind of have a longer, maybe you say a little healthy longer.
Yeah.
You don't say there's not as much wear and tear on your body, but in a sense of, you do master skills, the sooner you can learn them. So it's kind of a tough gig, but I think if you have young children, kids and they're starting at 5, 6, 7, just limit the head blows and make sure we take care of their bodies properly.
Were you watching a lot of boxing as a kid, like on TV? And if so, did you have those guys that you looked at on TV as like, when we're kids, we have those sports heroes, those guys we want to emulate. Did you have those guys in boxing?
Oh yeah, man. I just remember watching, everybody was watching, Chavez, the Chavez fights, the Camacho fights, it was always kind of being played at, in our parties and our family events, and as it just kind of grew up, the Oscar De La Hoyas, and, you kind of, you just, whatever was popping, who our champions were is who we followed. But then I know as I got older, I kind of got into watching a lot of the old, Salvador Sanchez, old fights, Willie Pep, Rocky Marciano. I started just wanting to just watch all the boxing. And just
now, do you do that? Do you do that just for your own recreation and enjoyment, or do you dive into that stuff because you think there's stuff there to be learned from the old timers?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think you watch them do little things, small little tricks that they just did, back in the day. There wasn't so much athleticism. It was more pugilist. They had to understand proper range and distance. They weren't just being able to, box on just their natural athletic abilities and skills. They really had to, really pinpoint what they did proper. So yeah, I kind of both. Sometimes you just like to watch it, and sometimes it's a learning lesson.
And now, would you consider yourself, now that your fighting career is over, do you still follow the sport actively and watch a lot of boxing? And if so, who are some guys doing it now that you enjoy watching?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I stay boxing, man. I'm promoting here in Texas. So it's we stay dialed in with boxing. I follow it. I follow all the big fights. But right now, I guess. I'm a huge fan of Usyk. I'm a huge fan of watching of Victor Ortiz. Who's from Dallas. He's had some injuries, but you have to love how he's coming up. And Naue, just being a small little fast little guy, he's just so good. And just his technique is incredible. Bivol, Beterbiev, all these fighters, even though when I was fighting consistently, we were all kind of dancing around each other. But I'm a fan. First off, I love the sport. I love to keep up with all. I probably don't keep up as much as some of them probably the smaller weight classes. But man, I just love boxing. Period. I can just watch it all day.
Do you feel like there's any one person out there right now who stands out currently in the landscape of boxing that is the face of boxing? A lot of people say it's still Canelo, but there's a lot of guys nipping at his heels, though. But all these guys, they banter back and forth. Of course, social media is a big thing now. Yeah. Everybody is vying to be that guy, that face that face that's carrying the sport. Does that guy exist right now? Is it still Canelo?
I think there's there's a lot. I think boxing in general has a lot of faces. I think Canelo, he's probably our biggest star per se. He's the biggest seller. So he, you call him the face of boxing, but if you see some of some of the things he's got going on, he's kind of the wear and tear on him for starting for so long and fighting at such a high level for so long. You can kind of see a little bit of a slowdown in him. He's such a competitor. You still want to love to watch him fight. I guess per se, just his resume and what he's done. He's probably the face of boxing right now. But man, I mean, Terrence Crawford. Inoue. Usyk. I mean, there's just so many. Tyson Fury. I mean, there's so many really quality fighters that you just have to appreciate the sport in general.
Obviously Crawford and Canelo, I don't know if it's actually been inked and made official, but obviously Turki Al-Sheikh faced them off in the ring. Looks like we are going to get that fight. How do you see that shaking out? That's obviously a huge task for Crawford, but I've done almost 250 interviews on here. I've posed the question to a lot of guys, obviously people see something special in Crawford. They do say if there's a guy out there that could pull this off against Canelo, it would be a guy like Crawford. Obviously, you always hear weight classes exist for a reason. Canelo's been at that weight for a long time and living there, campaigning there for a while. How do you see that shaking out?
I see it being a very competitive fight. I think that Crawford does have the skills and the mindset to dictate the pace, to keep Canelo guessing. I think he will. He can do several different things, whether we see him use his legs a little bit or we see him kind of sit in the pocket. And Crawford is, he's a 147, 54 now, but moving to 68. I've met him a couple of times at different shows. He's not a little per se. He's a very physically
I know. I bet him too. Yeah, he is. He's bigger than he's bigger than he looks on TV. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, he really is. He really is. And so, man, I see it being a really good fight. I mean, it's really a dangerous fight for Canelo. I mean, he's gonna have to let his hands go. He's gonna have to, but he does have that eraser. He does have the pop. But I think it's a very competitive fight. I like it, honestly. I give Crawford a huge chance to really pull the upset off.
Now, during your own career, man, who gave you your toughest fight? Is there one guy that you would credit with who really gave you a long day at the office?
Yeah, man. I know I had, being so young, 20, when I was 20-0 and I got the opportunity to fight Pavlik, you know what I mean? It was
I talked to him last night. He was there last night. He's a great guy. He really is a great guy. Yeah, awesome.
Great guy. He taught me a lot in that ring. I got in, you're that 20-0, you haven't seen everything, you know what I mean? You've kind of been led to, you've been doing what you're doing and you had the right guys put in front of you to get to that point. But it's I learned a lot in that, handling the motions, the little things you can do different in the ring. We're hitting each other and trying to hurt somebody. So he definitely was one of the toughest. I think being so young at that time when I fought him. But man, even Zerto Ramirez, he just the way he lets his hands go and the way he uses his feet so well, he gets closer to you quicker than you think, and he's got a lot of range. He's pinpoint accurate with his shots. He does a really good job. Those I mean, for the most part, but I learned a lot from every fight I was in. Somebody always, brought something out of me that just, you had to dig down deep or you had to use a trick or two here to really get by. But man, those two fights, just not only because they were big fights, it was just, I learned a lot from them. I really learned a lot from those fights.
Where do you stand on? It's such a polarizing topic, and he's such a polarizing character. I get very divided answers on here, but where do you stand on these Jake Paul events? Obviously, you're in the promoter seat right now. Yeah. He's obviously somebody that's trying to live like a fighter, train like a fighter. The resume is still questionable, but he's trying to portray himself as a fighter. Is he somebody that you look at now? I know guys give him credit. He's climbing through the ropes. Any guy that does that, I certainly give credit to. But has he earned that respect, you think, amongst fighters or in the boxing world where people look at him now and say, okay, he's a bona fide fighter?
Yeah, man, I think it's coming along. I think it's a little bit slow. I think people want to see him, fight a more legitimate, maybe not somebody past their prime per se.
Does Chavez Jr. count?
I think it's definitely a step up. I know he has his issues and he's been in and out of the ring, but it's definitely a step up as a definitely real fight. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I like what Jake's doing. I mean, he's actually spending the time. He's in the ring. He's taking it serious. He's got a great team behind him of their not only on the promotional side, but just his training. He's got to put that work in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he is getting the women fighters paid. He does
Yes.
take care of the people on his card. And usually the people who are in favor of it that are on here usually say, good, bad, or otherwise, he's bringing eyes to the sport.
Exactly. And that's what we want. You want the eyes on the sports. He's got the women fighting. He's making them the main events. He's really doing a good job. So you really can't really dog him. You know what I mean? He's kind of got to a position faster than a lot of us fighters who didn't have his connections have gotten. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's earned it.
Now, during your career, man, were guys ever able to make any fights, or did you ever look at any of the fights? Did they ever get personal? Were you somebody that liked to exchange in trash talk, or did you just look at it as business all the time? Was there ever a situation where somebody really truly got under your skin and it felt like anything other than business?
Yeah, I always took it. It was only one time that I can even comes to mind. It was for Rayford Johnson, veteran fighter. He just was an old head. Not old in the sense of fighter, but he had a lot of just veteran experience.
Yeah.
And at the weigh-ins, I always, you do these people trash talk. They say certain things. And I never really bit into it. I never did it myself. I never had to use it. I felt like some fighters need to use it to kind of get themselves to the level that they need to be for the fight.
Yeah.
And this guy, he kind of come at me. We're facing off, and he just kept talking, and it's where the weigh-ins are done, and everybody's cutting weight, so he's chit chatting, and he's just getting louder, but he just seemed really intense with it. It never really stopped, and then I just snapped. I was like, I just kept my body language totally changed, and it kind of got me a little hot at the weigh-ins, and we're pushing and shoving, almost kind of got to that point. So. But that was the only time, and when I look back, I was like, "Oh man, he did get me. He did kind of." Yeah. And then he had me trying harder to knock him out the next day, and he was taking my punches, and I was like, "Man!" But I think I was trying too hard now, because I was a little bit taking in that frustration and anger into the fight instead of just being relaxed and letting the knockout come. I was actually trying for it, and so then I never knocked him out. I mean, I beat him up for 8 rounds, but I didn't knock him out.
And that might have been part of his strategy, though, the fact that he got you in there and did get you trying so hard.
He got me trying harder, and he got to, he got me to stay right in front of him, you know what I mean, and probably fight a little harder than I wanted to, instead of just boxing and letting the knockout just come. He got me kind of trying too hard.
And now, as an ex-fighter, and I know I brought up Dimitris Salita and him putting on, his card last night during Hall of Fame weekend, man. Segueing from a fighter into now being a promoter yourself, man. Like, what's that transition been like? Man,
it's been really cool. Initially when I started in 2017 with the company, it was just me and my trainer and a good buddy. It was like, man, I need to, I was coming off an injury, and it was a shoulder. I had torn my shoulder, so I was coming off that, and I was like, man, let me start promoting myself here locally, and get 2 or 3 wins, and let's just promote ourselves, and we'll get some of these local kids. I built such a really good relationship with Houston fighters, just traveling to all these gyms, that I was like, man, we need an outlet. These kids need a better. And I come up, in the fight scene of paying for your opponents, selling tickets to fights, and there's a lot of fighters out there that need that to get to that level, and that's, I think, what got me these bigger opportunities. And so we were just, man, we just love the sport. So transitioning into like promoting and and making matches and matchmaking, it's all, I love it just because I love the sport, and then it's a good time. I enjoy watching these younger fighters come through the from 0-0, no one knows them, maybe they had 20 amateur fights or something, but they go in and they put the discipline in, and they got a good team behind them, and they work their butts off. They sell tickets, and they, and at some point you just want to see them be as more successful and get that TV shot, or get a bigger, a big shot on another card. And that's kind of what drives us to kind of, keep promoting here local.
Now, what about like, certainly doing this podcast, I try to be involved in, various boxing groups on social media, try to keep my ear to the pavement with what's going on, what's popping off in the sport or whatever. There's certainly a certain demographic of people that are happy with Turki Al-Sheikh and Saudi Arabia's involvement in boxing. They're obviously trying to match up the best with the best, but they are trying to shake things up. Maybe get rid of some of the in-between weight divisions, scale back the pay so guys fight a little more frequently. Some stuff that might shake up the sport or whatever, and there is a demographic out there who likes that, and then there's a certain demographic of people who are a little protective of the sport and are not sure they want this. You know, I mean, where do you stand on what Turkey and Saudi are becoming players in the boxing world? Do you like what they're doing?
I like what they're doing. I definitely think I definitely like what they're doing. You know, I mean, because they got the money and they can, you know, and pay these fighters, you know, for some of these higher level fights, you know, and that most likely we wouldn't see here in the States.
Yeah.
You know, we probably don't see some of these big heavyweight fights. We don't see maybe a Canelo Crawford just because promoters can't get along and, you know, and make it work on the back end of the business side. And I think what they're doing is just they're taking that, you know, that problem and just kind of solving it. But, you know, and they're pairing fighters well, you know, even when they got to get over there. And I think that's important. And then they're, you know, even making them being able to have fighters fight a little more consistently. I mean, you look back in the days when these older fighters, you know, back in, you know, 60s and whatnot, man, they were just fighting consistently. I mean, they just, and it was just, and I feel like, yeah, there's a risk to it health wise and, you know, and brain damage. But if you do it properly and you're always on point, I feel like you just fight better staying consistent. And I think that's what those old fighters really understood. You know, I mean, there's not so much downtime. They kind of stay in the gym. It's just that they just live that lifestyle. And so I think that I think it's going to be great. I think what they're doing is good. I think it's just a change. And we just kind of ride that wave. We just got to kind of get used to it.
Right. You know? Right. I mean, you're a guy who's been in the ring. You know, obviously we saw Turkey pull off an unprecedented move, you know, dropping a ring in the middle of Times Square and putting fights on right in the middle of New York City. It was a great card on paper. Turned out to be kind of a lackluster night that left a lot of people flat. But the one fight I want to focus on particularly is the return of Devin Haney after that Ryan Garcia fight. A lot of people said he didn't want to get in there and mix it up with Jose Ramirez, that maybe, you know, the beating he took in the hands of Ryan Garcia left him with, a lot of people had the theory of PTSD. Would you agree with that theory, that you can take an ass whooping so bad that you might be a little hesitant to want to get in there and mix it up? I mean, obviously we know Devin is not the type of guy who really gets in there and brawls like a Gaddy Ward style. You know, that's his game anyway, but I mean, he was even running a lot even for him.
Yeah, no, he definitely was doing a little bit more of, you know, I mean, I think you know there definitely can be, because and maybe it even he saw it some in his training. You know, maybe his sparring sessions were, you know, he was just having maybe a little bit harder time than he'd liked, and so he's like, man, in this fight he must have just mentally just said, I'm gonna have to use my legs a lot more. I'm gonna have to move more. I don't need to be getting hit, and maybe he's just, you know, that PTSD of just what happened to him, you know, making the mistakes. He's being a little bit more protective on his defensive side, but it's become, you know, obviously it looks like he's just running and moving. He's not really trying to fight. So it definitely can happen, though. I can see it. I mean, he you know, I think that Ryan Garcia fight really did something to him.
Yeah. Which is obviously funny, because then on that night we see Rolly Romero pull a big upset against Ryan, which is absolutely crazy.
I know, and Rolly, he just has that style like that where he's so irky jerky. He's not a really conventional. Everything's kind of awkward. He's one of the hard. That's gonna be a hard fight, and he has power. So it's like, that's a hard guy to fight. You know what I mean? He gives you no real rhythm to fight off of. He's kind of irky jerky. You never really can tell what he's going to do, because you don't even know if he knows what he's going to do.
Right. And plus, a lot of people in the crowd were kind of joking with him. But you know, take nothing away from him. A lot of people were joking about how he had the phone to his ear the whole time. But he did take away that left hook. He was disciplined and kept it there the whole time. And I mean, that is Ryan's big weapon.
He did. I mean, he kept it there. It worked. You know, I mean, he pulled the old Bernard Hopkins when he fought Trinidad. You know, he never saw Hopkins' hand ever leave, you know, his side. It just stayed right there with him, just everywhere he moved.
Now, is there a fight in your career that maybe was talked about, or maybe was alluded to the fact that might happen? I'm talking about for you, a person to fight that maybe you wanted to see happen and it just didn't come to fruition, fell apart for whatever reason.
Yeah, there was opportunities when I was light heavyweight to fight Kovalev.
Okay.
And I went up to Dallas when he fought. He was defending. I think he ended up. It was up in Dallas. That's where I had seen Crawford. I forgot who he was fighting, but we flew up, met the WBO, and I had fought for one of their belts and had just won their minor title. And that was something that we were trying to work on. Was maybe fighting Kovalev, and then and I was kind of excited about it just because he had so much experience, world champion, fought the best fighters. And then just it never really, we really never worked out any deal and couldn't make it happen. So that kind of fell through. Who's another? There's another. That was kind of really the big one. I've had some other phone calls for just pickup fights, even like now, like then I'm not even per se I retired because I've had that Bridgerweight belt that I picked up and picked up. I had sustained a couple just minor injuries throughout the years, and we just can't never secure a big fight. But I think it's still open. But Kovalev was probably the one that I thought we were going to get, and it didn't happen.
What's too short of notice? Because obviously we saw back in February, like when they put on that great card in Saudi Arabia, we saw Josh Padley get the opportunity of a lifetime and step in, it changed his life and give a pretty good account of himself for 9 rounds against Shakur. And then we saw that same card did not work out so great for Martin Bacoli against Joseph Parker, really coming in on short notice, like jumping off the plane and getting in the ring. In your opinion, what's the shortest notice you ever took a fight on, and what would be too short for you?
The shortest I taken a fight on, I think, was 7 weeks.
Yeah.
I had 7 weeks, and then it was like, hey, can you make weight? How big are we off of weight? You kind of have to put those things into effect. Too short, I think. I mean, and I guess it really just depends on the fighters per se. Like, are they in the gym, and how seriously are they in the gym with sparring?
Right.
Are they with high quality guys? And if they called you with 1 week's notice, you can be like, man, I've been sparring great for the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I feel good. Yeah, I definitely in great shape. I'm close to my weight, and I could take that fight. I can see it being a 2-3 weeks notice. You could take it. But the only thing I find out that where we're seeing issues, especially with these fighters that have to travel to, Saudi and or whatnot, even just even just to England or whatnot from the States. Is they're really not, no one really has that experience in that travel and in that jet lag, how they're going to feel when they get there. And then that's, I think, where you're seeing guys, they're going to take the fight because we're all fighters, and obviously there's money on the line where it's a big payday, but you're just not yourself when you get in there. You're not yourself if you try to take a fight in England, Saudi, wherever, where there's a huge jump and change in the time zone, that you're just not going to be 100%. And you have to know that going in.
Were you the type of guy that usually in between fights kind of stayed in the ballpark of your fighting weight?
Yeah, I always kind of, even when I fought it, like when I was fighting at super middleweight, I always stayed about 10 pounds, 12 pounds over, I'd be 75-ish around there. 85-ish. And then light heavyweight, I always stayed. That was kind of a lot easier. I was like maybe 90. I'd walk around consistently at 90, staying in the gym. But then when COVID happened, I think when we got shut down for COVID and everybody got put at home and gyms were closed and you couldn't leave, and I think that kind of was my hardest time. Where I was like, man, you're sitting around, just got the kids, we're just eating, we're just playing, we're not, we weren't working out anymore. It's consistent,
Yeah.
And I think I put some weight on where I was like, oh man, I got to get this weight off. And then I got the Zerto. We got the Zerto call, and it was like, hey, 8 weeks or so. I think it was 7 or 8 weeks. Let's make this fight happen. We're like, okay. Then I was like, oh man, I got a lot of weight to lose.
And so you certainly had a great career, 35-4, 27 knockouts. But so let me get this straight. You haven't officially retired from the sport, though. Like, you would be open to fight. And now, and if you don't mind me asking, how old are you currently?
I just had a birthday in May 16th, so I just turned 43.
Okay, so you haven't officially retired, but do you have a set idea in mind? Like, okay, when I get to a certain age, that's it. I wouldn't fight past this age.
I've kind of put this year. I've told the family and my wife that this year, no matter what happened, whether I got a big opportunity or I got another fight that made some money or didn't make some money, that this would be it. I told a lot of my endorsers and sponsors and my team. I've kind of let everybody know, like, hey, no matter what happens this year, the injuries are piling on. I'm not recovering. You don't recover the same when you get into your 40s. You hear it. You can try to deny it, but it's there. Doesn't matter what you do, consistently eating, training, sleeping, whatnot. It's a different animal.
The body changes. Sure, it does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to respect it. You got to know how to adjust your training. You know, you can't train the way you did when you were in your early, you know, late 20s, 30s, right? So you just got to make adjustments.
Now, when you took like losses, man, what was it like for you mentally, man? How did you move past losses, man? Because you seem like you have a very optimistic attitude, even when you're talking about opportunities of getting in there with guys now. You really seem like, you know, regardless of whether I feel overmatched or I feel like, you know, it's an even fight, I'm here to at the very least, you know, learn something and glean some wisdom here. I mean, like from this, you know, from this encounter, man. So like, you know, like obviously there's disappointment involved. Like when you do lose the fight, you're not showing up there to lose. But you know, when it's all said and done, and the dust settles, and you don't get your hand raised in victory. How did you personally like move past it? You know, how did you deal with it in those days and weeks following?
Yeah, all of them were different. I think per se, like when I got the opportunity with Pavlik and I lost on point, I knew kind of going in, you know, the odds were stacked against me. You know, I knew I was probably gonna have to be just a dominant performance to pull off a win. But it didn't show that I was going to go out there and be as competitive as I can and walk away with my head held high that I did everything I could to win the fight. That one didn't bother me too much. I left it all in the ring. I had really nothing to. I was very young, you know, young per se in a sense of me getting out there and getting a big fight. And it didn't bother me. Now, in some of the fights that I was dialed in and ready and I felt good, I had no problem walking. Now, some of them I might have gone back and man, I used like Dia Davis. I think I fought the wrong style that night. I trained to box and I got in with a boxer and I should have been more aggressive and I should have probably pushed him back and used my strength. And I kind of stayed on the outside too much, trying to just, you know, trying to be the boxer from the outside. And I could have been more aggressive and fought. And so, like, some of those, you'll look back and be like, you know, you'll beat yourself up. Like, man, I made. Why did we think that the boxing was going to work? Why didn't we work on being more aggressive? So, some of those things you question. And then one fight I fought after I think I fought Dia Davis. I had a really bad elbow injury, and then my management team at the time had got a call for me to fight like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, and I was like, no, man, my body's hurt, my elbows hurt, everything was. I didn't really feel great, but they was the last fight on the contract. I was kind of like pushed into it. No, they were like, hey, you're gonna fight nobody, just going to get a win. And I went in really not in the mood to be there. I did not want to be there. They were trying to make me make 160. I didn't even come close. I made like 65 or something. I thought the fight was just, no guy was not going to take it. He's like, I'll still fight. And I was like, dang. I was so dehydrated in the ring the next day that when I got in that ring, it was like the worst of, you know, performance of my career. Just, you know, and just not even in a sense of what I did in the ring that night. It was just in a sense of, you know, what it took for me to make that weight. And then I just was not myself. And I was fighting with a headache, like a hangover. And it was just getting hit. And it was like, oh man, this is horrible. And I ended up losing that fight. And that fight only because I knew I didn't want to be there. That fight ate me up for a little bit, like just because I lost to the guy who was not on my level, and I just kind of felt like I disappointed a lot of people, and I was just upset with the team for putting me in that spot to fight 2 weeks. It was like 2 or 3 weeks later after I just fought a 10-rounder on ESPN. It was like, why are you putting me on this wing bout, you know? And that one kind of was a little hard on me, you know, mentally. I kind of ate that one for a little while. I kind of drug out, and then I was like, man. And then so I took a step back, and my contract had ended with management team, and I went and had some surgeries on my elbows that I had been bothering me for years, and so that one loss did eat me up a little bit. I think it was just a sense of, I knew I didn't want to be there, and I was kind of forced into it, and that one hurt. But the other one, my other losses, very competitive fights, you know what I mean? To me, at the end of the day, it's like, they're gonna beat you up, but you know, if you go out there and you lay it all out there, and you know, it's a subjective sport, people are gonna judge you no matter what, and you just have to understand what you did for yourself, and that you left it all in the ring.
Now, looking at your record, as I said, 35 wins, 27 coming by way of knockouts. So I think people would look at that and say, wow, this is obviously a guy who, for lack of a better term, borders on being a knockout artist. Is that what you would want people to remember, or would you say, hey, take a step back for a minute? That's not a fair assessment of what I do.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't call it I wouldn't say I'm a knockout artist. Not a fair assessment. I think I was, you know what I mean? I think a lot of my knockouts just came from me not, and I try to tell my fighters that I train now or that I just mentor. It's like it's the ones I had. I could have probably knocked out almost everybody. Now I can hit. I can punch is what I'm told. I don't consider myself a puncher. But anybody I've trained with, sparred with, you know, from elite levels, there's like, you know, they'll compliment me on my power.
Yeah.
And I don't see it as I hit hard. I just think I use a little, I snap a little bit, you know, I kind of have that old school, not Soviet, but there's a whipping type,
right,
you know, punches where they just comes off of speed and relaxation instead of brute strength.
Right.
And and when you're not trying to knock someone out, you know, and you throw 2, 3, 4 punches, those are the ones that you knock people out with. You know, it's almost when you're not trying that I always felt that I knocked people out, you know, but you know, to be a power puncher per se, like a Golovkin or Beterbiev, you know, those guys to me seem like, okay, those are punchers, you know.
And now, what is the name of your promotional company?
Tigre Promotions. Yeah.
And now, do you take it outside of Texas? Are you trying to get worldwide?
I mean, it's definitely a goal. I honestly did not, you know, I'm just being honest. I know I'm really happy where we are right now, how much we've grown from 2017. And I think the opportunities are there to eventually move out of the state. But right now we are very local based. You know, I live in Houston, where I'm a little bit north of Houston in the Woodlands. And we promote, you know, about an hour north in Conroe. We go to Galveston Island. We actually have a show coming up this Saturday in Galveston. That's a big event for us. We enjoy that one.
I guess I picked the right hat today. Then shout out! I'm wearing my Fifth Ward Posse hat. Shout out Houston!
You go. That's right.
Shout out Houston! Fucking thanks to former world champion Reggie Sweet Johnson, I'm an honorary Fifth Ward Posse guy.
Hey, there you go. It's awesome, man.
And of course, and of course, we couldn't shout out Houston without shouting out the late great George Foreman. I mean,
yes, absolutely. You know, we got to give love to him. But this is a lot of great history here in Houston. We love to put the fights on, but right now, local, love to branch out eventually. We just started doing a lot of shows now with Red Owl, who they're basically out of Canada, but they got a venue here in Houston, and they get a lot of DAZN contracts. And so I think there's some opportunities to maybe partner with them a little more and branch out of the state of Texas.
So there's a good crop and a good scene of boxing, though, like where you are in your area.
Oh yeah. There's definitely a good scene. There's a handful of really potential up and coming prospects. You know, I promote a couple. I don't have anybody particularly signed that I could tell you is going to be a world champion, but they will fight on our card. Darius fought on. I promoted Darius Fulgham a couple of times.
Oh yeah.
You know, he went on and has done amazing things. You know, so those are always it's always great to have. So we kind of just stay branching out, but there's definitely a good crowd of fight here in Houston. It stays busy.
Now, did you always know that when you stepped away, or I know you haven't made it official that you stepped away, but when you started to slow down your boxing career, did you always kind of think, when I hang the gloves up, I'm going to keep a foot in the sport, or was there ever an inclination to make a clean break? Like, I know a lot of guys, it's their natural inclination to say, all right, I fought my whole life. It makes sense to become a promoter, become a trainer, become a matchmaker, or whatever. You know, was there ever an inclination to say, I'm going to make a clean break and go in a completely different direction, or were you always destined to keep a foot in the sport?
Yeah, I think I was kind of always destined to keep a foot in the sport. I think I just had just made way too many connections with fighters and just just people here in Houston, and just being very personal with businesses for advertisements and things of that nature. It's really been I've been blessed to just meet really good people, really good companies that want to put their brands on big shows. And so I think I've always would have been a part of it. I trained a couple of amateurs, and I obviously we promote. And so we're always looking for new talent just to give these kids opportunities. So I think I've always would have been a part of it. I even think sometimes I look at the referees and, the judges, and I think I just love it so much. I'm like, man, I think I want to go that route, maybe start practicing. So just because I feel like there should be more fighters involved in judging fights. I think
I'm so glad you're saying that, because I have had the debate on this podcast, and my viewers and subscribers certainly know, man, that I've been super hypercritical, because as you know, working with young fighters, a bad decision can really change the trajectory of their career. Future opportunities, future financial opportunities. What I mean, and we're having guys, and not to call anybody out by name, but we're having guys sometimes who are sitting there who might not have ever had a confrontation with another man in their lives. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I think you're right. Even if the person sitting there judging did it, even Golden Gloves or on an amateur level, just to know what it's like to step through there and know what they're looking for when they're watching two men in an altercation.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think we if there was a way that you could probably help fighters, retired fighters, transition into some type of judging where there wasn't like such a. I enjoy it, like I watch it, but when you ask, it's like, okay, you have to go through the amateur program and start there. It's like,
right.
If you're like a former world champion or a very high level contender, or you're ranked in the top 10, that should take some precedence over like, man, I've been here, I understand.
Absolutely.
I've done these things. I don't feel like I need to go and volunteer every hour, or every weekend, to kind of get my experience. So, but it definitely, I think we would have a lot, we'd have a better understanding of rounds being scored properly.
Well, I mean, every single time you turn around and see a boxing journalist, a podcaster, anybody that's out at a live event, doing what they do, they're always like sticking a cell phone or a microphone in someone's face, and they know that if they want to pick someone's brain, they're going to pick someone and get their opinions, somebody who's done it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like it'd be a great thing if there was a program where that could work out. But I thought about trying to get into that as well. Because just all aspects really interest me.
Where do you stand on? Where do you stand on? I know they've flirted with possibly adding a fourth judge that would be AI or go into AI judging. Do you like that idea at all? I'm not so sure that the idea is to take away the human element. I don't know.
I think we definitely have to have the human element. And I mean, sitting ringside with some emotions and the feel, you can watch it and feel it when you're close to the judge. I sit there ringside and you're just watching close compared to how you watch from the stands per se. From the stands a little further back, it's a different perspective. You get really up close, it's a different perspective.
Right.
And
obviously a computer could count punches and tally up stuff or whatever, but right, like I don't know if a computer could tell who's walking the guy down, who's commanding the ring, who's winning the ring generalship war.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff.
The
intangibles.
And I agree that those things, those tangibles, it cannot be. You need a body, you need a human body to make that happen. For sure.
Yeah. Listen, man, I appreciate you being so generous with your time. I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this. I know we rescheduled a couple of times, but I'm glad we finally got a chance to nail this down, man. It's really been great chopping it up with you. Please stay in touch, man. When you got an event, when you got something going on, I'd love to have you back on, man. We'll chop it up again.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I got Galveston coming up this on the 14th. We got like 10 fight card right now. We're still working on a couple of opponents that we had some issues with, but yeah, man, absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time to, having me on.
Now, where's the best place to tap? Where's the best place to tap in and see like what you do, man? Does your company have a website? So people can find out what you're putting on.
Our website is tigrepromotions.com. You can go online. You'll see, tickets. Can buy the tickets there. Our Facebook page is probably where we get the most traffic. We just have a Tigre Promotions Facebook page. And that gets a lot of traffic for us. We kind of keep that busy. That's where people are always kept up to date, and social media is always good for that. But definitely website and definitely Facebook and Instagram.
Cool. I appreciate it, man. We'll do this again for sure, man. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Great talking to you,
Alfonso. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day.
Yes, sir. You too. We'll talk again soon, my friend. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
There he goes, folks. Alfonso Lopez, 35-4, 27 knockouts. 43 years old, could still be open for a fight, folks. Could still be open for a fight. Listen, those were his words, not mine. Not putting words in his mouth, but this, as he said, is the final year. So he says. We've heard that from fighters before. But, hey, listen, Alfonso looks great, man. Looks like he's in shape. Looks like he could go. But it looks like he's also having a ball promoting as well, man. And it just seems like that's a natural fit for him. Really seems like really seems like he's found his niche and found his lane, and that's always great to see, man. Love to see when fighters get into the promotional aspect who were, who obviously are going to be fighter friendly. I saw it last night with Dimitri Salita. I see the way he moves and interacts with his fighters. I think there's a certain bond. I'm sure Oscar has it, with his fighters. Rather than just a suit and tie guy, you're dealing with somebody who's climbed through those ropes and can totally get and understand like what you're going through, what you're dealing with. So that's great to see. Glad to see Alfonso Lopez is doing his thing. Head to his website. If you're in the area and he's putting on shows, get out to one, support him, support his fighters. Let me just run down some of his accolades. Former WBC-Continental Americas super middleweight champ in 2010, WBO-NABO light heavyweight champ 2019, WBC-NABF light heavyweight champ 2019, WBC-NABF Bridgerweight champ 2021. The man has some accolades. Fought Gilbert Zerto Ramirez, Kelly Pavlik. So the man knows whereof he speaks. So if any of his fighters see this, hey, listen to the guy, man. Knows a thing or two, man. And would love to have him back on the podcast. Really fun chopping it up with him, man. Glad we finally got a chance to do this. Alfonso Lopez, my sincere gratitude. We'll definitely do that again, man. Great guest, man. Loved his insights, his opinions on everything. Those are the kind of conversations right there, man. This is what we do here at Off the Couch Boxing, man. We're all over the board with it, man. You guys know how we get down. Now let me go into my own promotional mode because I have to do it because there's 60 million, that's a guesstimate, podcasts out there. They're not all boxing podcasts, but there are gazillions of podcasts out there. So, I got to go into pimp mode here and pimp my own podcast. So here I go. My obligatory speech. Make sure to go and like and follow Off the Couch Boxing /Podscum. Remember, there's two. If you're into pugilism, Off the Couch Boxing is going to be your thing. If you're into music, arts, and entertainment, then you can go on there and watch your boy Rexx chop it up with musical artists from many different walks of life and many different genres on Podscum. So like and follow us on Facebook under Off the Couch Boxing and Podscum, and make sure to go to the channel. You're on it right now if you're watching me. So while you're here, like, subscribe, smash that notification button to stay tapped in. You know how we get down here. Again, 2 playlists, Off the Couch Boxing and Podscum. You will see that on the YouTube channel. Whatever you're into. If you're into both, great. Definitely make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. If fighting and music is your thing, you're in the right place. So, and again, big thank you to my viewers. Big thank you to my subscribers. We just hit a milestone. Might seem small to some people, man, but we just hit 1K, 1,000 subscribers. We're well over 130 in the ballpark views, which seems small potatoes, but considering that we built this thing from the ground up, an independent podcast, I couldn't be happier. Never got into this because I wanted to have huge monumental numbers. It's nice. Usually they're trickling in rather than pouring in, but I'm grateful for whatever I can get. I do this because of the passion that I have for both boxing and music. So I couldn't be happier. But again, I wanted to share it with you guys. It is monumental to hit 1,000 subscribers, all of them hard earned for, nothing bought, no cheating, no cutting corners. It's raw, it's real, it's unfiltered. We've grinded and hustled for every one of you guys, man. So to you guys out there, my sincerest gratitude. And of course, I couldn't do what I do without my guests. So the biggest thank you goes out to them, all the people that have popped up here. When I see their faces on the screen, whether they're from the boxing world or the music world, I am bowled over. I always say these are not people whose names I just pick from a hat. They've been on my radar. I love what they do. I respect what they do. I seek them out and run them down to have them on this podcast. So it truly means a lot to anybody that comes on here and chops up with me and has these incredible conversations. So with that being said, let me remind you again to stay tapped in to the undefeated heavyweight champion of boxing podcast. I will defend it. If anybody can prove me wrong, go look at the playlist. We've ran down a lot of people, man. A lot of people have been on this podcast. There's something on there for everybody. We run down the OGs, the legends of the sport, the young up and coming guys that are going to be future champions. And Mr. International, I go all over the place. I run them down in every country. We've had people on from England, Australia, Ireland, South Africa. It doesn't matter. I'm going all over to run down whoever I possibly can and have them on here. Listen, I'm providing great content on here, and I'm doing it all for the love and the passion that I have for boxing and music. And I hope you guys see that. I hope you guys love that. I hope you guys continue to support it. And I got good news for you. Not only are we the heavyweight, undefeated heavyweight champion of boxing podcast, and I'm trying to get my mouse to work here, but you too can be a champion. That's the good news. How, Rex? I'm sitting here watching you. How can little old me sitting here on my computer or my phone, how can I be a champion? Well, it's very simple. And here's the formula. All you got to do is continue to stay tapped into Off the Couch Boxing and continue to roll with us. Continue to roll with the champs. Peace.